Hello and welcome to the second part of our writing lesson for the TOEFL exam. Okay, in the first part we saw the integrated writing lesson. In this video we'll cover the independent writing task. Now, just to remind you, this is the fifth video of our complete TOEFL course. So what I'll recommend you do is go and watch all the other videos before, especially the first video in which we cover the structure of the TOEFL exam. Okay, and then come and watch this video. All the links are in the description below. So now, let's get to business. So now, before getting to the content, what I'm gonna ask you to do is subscribe to our channel because we're putting on a lot of content for the GMAT, the GRE, the TOEFL, the IELTS, and all the different admission exams. So if you want to be up to date with this information, just subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell. Okay, now also share this video with your friends because I'm pretty sure they're gonna find it very helpful. So now let's start with the writing lesson for the independent task. Now, as a little overview of the independent essay, what they're gonna ask you to do is very simple. They're gonna give you a statement, okay, in which they're gonna ask for your opinion. Now, what I want you to do is to remember the lesson we did for the speaking section. Okay? In case you don't remember, go and watch it again because that's very important. In that lesson, we went over the first task, which was the independent speaking, in which you gave basically your opinion as an answer. This is almost the same thing. The only difference is that instead of giving your answer speaking, you're gonna give it writing, okay, in an essay. And of course, you're gonna have to write way more words. So the question they're gonna give you could contain some alternatives, like this one, for example, in which they're giving you two alternatives, or it could be something very open-ended, in which you can just imagine anything, like something like this, right? In which you could just answer whatever you want, as long as you can support it. Now, one very important thing to say about this independent essay is that in all my years of experience tutoring for the TOEFL, over 12 years, I've seen that this is maybe the easiest section, the easiest part. Okay, people normally don't have a problem writing, so you can get easily a 20, 22. But my recommendation would be that you should always try, you should aim to get the best possible score, because this is the opportunity you have in order to compensate for any other score. For example, if you got a low score on listening, on speaking especially, then here with this essay, if you do it very good and you get the maximum score, you would be compensating that score, okay? So this is a very big opportunity for you to make up that score and to be able to get a good score. This is a score which usually is over 100, okay? So don't miss on that chance. So now that you know what you're gonna do, what you're gonna get asked, which is very simple, right? You know that you have to give your opinion. Now we're gonna go over the times. Okay, these are the times. Basically, they just give you one time reference, which is 30 minutes, very open, right? 30 minutes for the whole essay. They give you a question and you have 30 minutes to write your whole essay. Now, what I would recommend you do though is to structure your times in the following way. How are you gonna distribute those 30 minutes you get? In order to make a choice, you should spend around 10 seconds. Now, you should be really fast making your choice. You can't be thinking like some people, right? I don't know if I like it, I agree or disagree. No, you should just come up with your answer really fast. So only 10 seconds for you to make a choice. Otherwise, you're wasting time. In order to make the outline, this is the most important part. You get 5 minutes. I think that's what you should allocate for your outline. Now, the outline, we're going to talk about it, is maybe the most important part, because in the outline is where you get creative. Okay, we're going to go over the outline in a second, but in the outline is where you come up with reasons, when you imagine them up. In order for you to produce a good essay, whatever you're saying has to make sense. Whatever you're saying must be logical, all right? You have to have a strong argument. So in the outline, you're gonna come up with the reasons why you're making a certain choice. For example, if you agree with something, then you're gonna say why. You give 3 reasons usually on why you believe that it is okay, why you agree, okay? And then you also come up with examples. You don't have to write the whole thing out. Of course, the outline is just a little outline. I mean, you just put basic ideas in there, but those are gonna give you the route to follow what's gonna come next in the writing process. Okay, so the outline is by far the most important thing. Actually, it's the it's what's gonna get you the points, because the reasons and examples that you use to support your answer are a big part of the scoring system. And then you get 20 minutes for writing time. Now writing of course is one of the most important parts. In my opinion, it's the second most important part after the outline, because writing in itself is more mechanical. You don't have to think too much. That's the thing. You don't have to get creative in writing. Just, it's more like an art. You start writing, you try to make your sentences look good, look nice. You make sure that they're grammatically correct. You try to, you know what message you want to express, but you try to basically be able to express the message clearly. Okay, that's what writing is. So you don't have to imagine too many things. You don't have to come up with ideas. What you have to do is just to apply writing techniques. Okay, so it's more of a mechanical process. It's an art in itself. So you get 20 minutes for it, all right? Which is basically you write the whole thing out. And then at the end, you should leave 4 to 5 minutes in order to proofread. Proofreading is very important. Proofreading saves you from any mistake you made, right? So you check your essay for grammatical mistakes, for mistakes in spelling, for anything that doesn't make sense, and you try to fix them as soon as possible, okay? So you should allow always at the end 4 to 5 minutes for proofreading. Okay, so to talk about the outline, I've already mentioned that the outline is by far, in my opinion, the most important part. If your outline is not good, if your outline is poor, then your whole essay will be poor, okay? You should think about it as if you were building a structure, right? A house, a building. So you gotta have the foundations correct, in this case the columns, right? If those are not good, then the whole structure is weak. Any professional essay writer, or most of them at least, start with an outline, because the outline gives you the guidelines of what to do, right? It gives you a structure. It kind of gives you order for you to have an organized product. Okay, so the outline is very important. Now, what do you want to have as an outline? Let's say this is the question you get, right? Some people prefer to drive a vehicle to work, others prefer to walk. Okay, let's say I get that question. I'm going to write my outline, I'm going to brainstorm, and then I'm going to try to find the best possible reasons. One per paragraph. Okay, so this is my outline here. Here I have walk, right? Walk is my choice. And then I have 3 things, 3 reasons why I would say that walking is better than driving to work. My first reason is healthy. All right, I misspell healthy. That's okay, because when you're typing things fast, you can misspell it. Then you're gonna change it later when you write the actual essay. Okay, remember this is an outline. This is basically, the outline is for you to have an idea of what you are going to write later on. So healthy, example number 1 for healthy. I burned 500 calories on a 30-minute walk. Okay, so that's my first example of why I think that walking to work is healthier than driving to work. Less weight, feel more active, and have less disease. So those are kind of consequences, benefits from walking instead of driving. Example number 2, not stuck in traffic. Do not become stressed. So if you don't get stuck in traffic, you are not stressed out. Okay, so those are the things that you need to have in each paragraph. First, you give a reason, so healthier, and then you show why it is healthier. You give examples, right? The examples are what allow you to show things. Okay, remember, most of the time they tell you, don't tell me, show me, right? So the examples are important for you to show how walking is better than driving, how it is healthier, because you can burn more calories and you get all these benefits. So that's what I'm going to write about in my paragraph. I'm going to develop that whole idea in my first body paragraph. Then number 2, the same thing. My reason is cheaper, right? I have my consequences. Number 3, social contact, also another reason why, and I have examples. You don't always need 2 examples per paragraph, okay? Most of the time, your whole essay should be 5 paragraphs long, all right? You have the introduction, you have 3 body paragraphs, and you have 1 conclusion. In each body paragraph, which are the most important paragraphs, you should have 1 reason and 1 example. And then at the end, notice that I have a number 4, right? Environmentally safe. I haven't developed that one because I don't need it. Actually, I only need 3. But I just put it in there as a substitute. For example, if I'm writing the essay and I notice that one of those reasons I had earlier, anywhere from 1 to 3, right? They're wrong, then I'm gonna need that number 4, okay, in order to substitute. So that's important. So that's what the outline is. That the outline is where you get creative when you think about your reasons, your ideas, and your examples. Later on the section of tips and tricks, we're going to go over the rubrics of this essay. And you're going to notice that examples are a major part of your score. So if you are able to develop good examples, you're going to get a high score. Now, and then you have the writing process. After doing your outline, you get to write. So you already have the ideas, you just need to write them more clearly to be able to express a message. Of course, you have to have some narrative kind of techniques so the person who is reading your essay doesn't get bored, okay? So we're going to learn more about it later on the tips and tricks section. And also I'm going to teach you how to write a nice paragraph. I'm going to give you some techniques, okay? Another thing you want to focus on, of course, is grammar, okay? Grammar, pronouns, tenses, those kind of things. We're going to talk more about this in the tips and tricks section. But as an overall product, as a final product, you want to give an essay that is around 400 words, okay? That's my recommendation for the overall word count of this essay, 400. After all my years of experience, over 12 years of experience tutoring for the TOEFL, I think that's the sweet spot, okay? If you want to write more, you can write more, but most people can't really give a good essay or produce a good essay with good grammatical resources that is over 400 words. And if you write less than that, well, I mean, let's say you write 250, 300 words, that's too little. You're just showing that it's very difficult for you to write, okay? And that's not good. So you should go for somewhere around 400. That's what you need to produce. And this essay, most of the time, I mean, my recommendation would be you should have 5 paragraphs. The introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and then the conclusion, okay? So my final product for this question would be this. So here we have my introduction, we have my first body paragraph in which I'm developing what I already had in my outline. I'm just developing it. And then I have my second body paragraph, which is the third paragraph in the essay, and then the third body paragraph, okay? And then a conclusion. If you want to read this essay, just stop the video. Okay, so that's what you want as a final product. So one very important thing before we go to the examples is the template. You need to have a good template. Here at Liberty Test Prep, we've crafted a very, very useful template. So this template you're going to follow, it contains a lot of keywords, a lot of transition words. So those are in there for you already, okay? You just need to fill in those red blanks, okay? So I'm going to read the template right now. Well, some people might prefer, and then you start implementing the opposite option, right? For example, if I'm going to choose walking over driving, then in that first red space, I'm going to write about driving. The options that I'm not going to choose. Well, some people might prefer driving. I would rather choose to walk, okay? So you generate a contrast. That's an important thing. Because of several reasons, among which are blah, blah, blah. So those are going to be the reasons you write for your body paragraphs. So then you go to the body paragraph, you say first, and you give your reason, because you give an explanation, a short explanation for the reason, and then you give, for example, an example. Now the example is what should take most of the space in that first paragraph, or in any body paragraph. You need to expand on the example. You cannot be short on the example, okay? So that's what's going to get graded, and we're going to see that later on. Then if you need more words, then you can add on the other hand, and then you give a counterexample about the other option. So that's a template. I'll leave this template for you in the description below for you to download it, okay? And now let's go to the live exercises. So perfect, now you know what you're being asked to do, what they want you to do in this question. You need to give your opinion. You know what to do in those 30 minutes and how to distribute your time. You know the importance of having a good outline. You know the importance of writing, right? Those pieces of important grammatical rules that you want to employ. Of course, you have already subscribed to our channel. If you haven't, then shame on you. You have to subscribe to the channel. And now we're going to go to the examples. We're going to give you a couple of exercises, and then I'm going to write an essay, because examples are the best way for you to learn. You have to know what a finished product looks like. The essays I'm going to write will score the maximum score, okay? And you're going to notice they don't need to be perfect, but they need to have some important things in there. Okay, so now let's go to examples, and stay after examples, because then we're going to go over the tips and tricks. So the example is very easy here. You're going to get a question, then you're going to get 30 minutes to write that whole thing out. And then at the end, after you have your product, you're going to see my answer. So for you to compare my product to yours, okay? and that way you're gonna learn, hopefully. And then we're gonna do 2 examples of this, right? So you ready? Let's go. Okay, so here's my template for the first question. And my template, you can see I have 4 reasons. As I told you before, you need to have 4 reasons. The first 3 are the main reasons, and reason number 4 is basically the substitute, okay? A reason you can use in order to replace any of your reasons in case you find out that one of the previous reasons you had does not work. Okay, so my first reason will be family gets together thanks to the TV. Of course, I'm disagreeing here, and I have that on top of my template, right? I disagree. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how the family gets together. I already have the idea. That's one of the reasons. And then I'm going to give an example of sports. So in my mind, I already have very clearly what I want to talk about. And I'm going to say how this TV has actually helped people get together. For example, to watch football games on weekends, right? Then reason number 2, information on TV gives people more topics to talk about. Okay, talking about news with friends, for example, yeah, so the TV helps you get more informed. So because you're better informed, you can actually get engaged in conversations more often and more, let's say, more substantial conversations with friends. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about in reason number 2. Reason number 3, entertainment programs on TV give, or actually, yeah, misspelling is okay here because this is the template. It doesn't matter too much, all right? Can make relationships stronger. Example, serious fans talk, discover, they have more things. Okay, so what I'm going to write here is basically how if you really love a TV show, let's say you love a TV series, right? Then you can talk about that series with people, right? So you might discover that other people have the same taste on TV shows, and then you can talk to them and you can make new friends just based on that single experience you share together, okay? So that's the thing. So now let's go to my essay. So this is my essay. I actually have 5 paragraphs. I'm showing the first 2 here, the introduction and the first body paragraph, okay? Now, notice how I'm using my essay, right? While some people might believe that TV, so I'm using the template, while some people might believe that the choice that I'm not gonna go for, right? The TV has disrupted and hindered communication. I strongly disagree with this position. So I'm setting that from the get-go very clearly that I disagree with that position. I believe that TV is a source of entertainment and information that can help friends get together, blah, blah, blah. And those are the reasons, right? First of all, that's the first body paragraph. Several shows aired on TV actually encourage family members and friends to get together. That's my reason. Okay, period. Then I'm going to give the example. For example, every single Sunday, my friends and I get together to watch football games on TV. We get together in the house of one of my friends and have a wonderful time eating and drinking together. Okay, so I'm explaining more. I'm giving that reason, that example. That's important for you to give a concrete example, something that is relatable, all right, to the reader. Okay, you watch these TV shows, actually sports, with your friends in one of their houses, right? While also catching up on our daily lives. So that's important also because you have the opportunity to chit chat with your friends. Okay. Watching the game has become a perfect excuse for us to be together and keep our friendship stable and healthy. On the other hand, now this is very important also, it is not actually mandatory, but if you want to make your argument stronger, you want to show the contrary. You want to show how not going with your position, how in this case not having the TV would hurt you, okay? So on the other hand, if it wasn't for the game, chances are that our meetings would be more spaced out. And that at some point we would stop meeting altogether. So the TV is actually doing the opposite. The TV is helping us be united. Because if it wasn't for the TV, if it weren't for the TV, then we wouldn't even meet, okay? Therefore, TV helps people to make a habit out of getting together. So that's a very strong argument, I believe, okay? Because it shows, the example is very concrete. It shows the contrary, and it actually tells you the idea that TV is necessary for you and for your friends to get together, okay? I'm trying to peddle that idea. Then we have the second body paragraph. Second, TV programming can in fact be a source of information that allows people to develop deeper and more substantial interaction. That's the thing, okay? So you can get better informed through the TV, and that will allow you to have a better communication with others, all right? For instance, now that's my keyword for example, right? For instance, when I see a friend, one of the first things I do is to talk about current news. Okay, so which leads us to get into a very long and intimate conversation. So if I talk to my friends about the news, that becomes a more substantial interaction. Most of our friends are very well informed about these current happenings thanks to the television. So again, thanks to the television. The TV is important for us to get informed about the news. On the contrary, I'm doing this again. I'm also showing what would happen if it weren't for the TV, right? If it wasn't for the TV, we wouldn't be able to talk about these important topics, and all we would have left is to gossip, making our interactions short and unsubstantial. Okay, so that's the thing. If it wasn't for the TV, there is no way we would actually be able to get informed about the news, and then the only thing we can do is gossip. Okay, so that's a strong argument. Actually, it doesn't have to be totally true because I'm trying to manipulate this argument, right? Because of course, if you don't have a TV, then you have the newspaper, you have the radio, right? But I'm just trying to support my argument, okay? Hence, that's a keyword of resolution, of conclusion. Television gives people more topics to talk about, improving the quality and length of interactions. Okay, another very strong argument. Number 3, last but not least, it is not rare that TV provides tons of quality content. So that's misspelled actually. It should be, it is not rare for TV to provide. So that's a small grammatical mistake right there. Okay, I at the end really have the time to check that out. Much of which can help make friendships stronger. Okay, so but the reason is established, all right? It gives you a lot of quality content that can help your friendships become stronger. Okay, that's kind of like, yeah, the reason has been established, but still we don't know what we're talking about, what I'm talking about. So I'm going to illustrate, I'm going to provide an example to kind of give details on what I mean. I'm a fan of thrillers and I have been hooked on the show Breaking Bad. Okay, that's an amazing show, right? During the last few years, I liked it so much that I would talk about it to my friends. By doing that, I found out that one specific friend was also a very big fan of the show. And we would spend several hours talking about it. Okay, so actually you can develop a friendship just because of this thing you have in common. This led us to develop a very strong friendship that lasts to this day. Thus, the content shown on TV can actually help people discover friends with common interests and also help them strengthen their friendship. So it can help you make new friends, and it can also help you actually, if you already have a friend, just be more intimate. Okay, that's the thing. So, and then you have a conclusion, which is something very, very short, right? This essay would easily score the maximum score, okay, because it fulfills all the requirements. The grammar is okay, right? There's nothing fancy there. I have a lot of adverbs, adjectives in there. I don't have really big words. I kind of rely on the template to have, hence, thus, for instance, for example, to illustrate those keywords. I'm trying to change them up, okay? But the reasons and examples are clear, okay? And I'm trying to defend, to support my choice. So that's, I think, good. My examples are concrete, which is the most important thing. Okay, I kind of show or I kind of tell a story with examples. And that's the important thing, that your examples are clear and that actually the person who reads this gets the message. Okay, that's the thing. Because writing as well as speaking is about sending a message, right? If the message doesn't get through, then you are not a good writer or you are not a good speaker. That's the thing, okay? So that was the first example. Okay, so here we have example number 2. This is my template. I'm going to agree with this. I'm going to say that living in a big city is better than living in a small town. Okay, reason number 1, better education. So you get a better education if you live in a big city. For example, the best schools in New York City. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, I already know what I'm going to talk about, that, for example, a city like New York has several universities and schools, and people actually come to New York to study, right? Because they actually they consider that the education in New York is better than in other places. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Reason number 2, more money, better job opportunities like Amazon, Microsoft. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how big companies usually establish their headquarters in big cities. All right, you usually don't have headquarters of a big company in a rural kind of a small town area, right? Okay, reason number 3, more comfort, right? Public services, more entertainment, subway, internet. I must say how living in a big city offers you more goods, right? Life is easier. You get more like utilities, public services, transportation, subway, taxis. Whereas if you live in a small town, you're gonna have to walk a lot. Sometimes there are no the quality or the standard of life is less than in a big city. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And reason number 4, which is my substitute, to get to know more people, different cultures. Of course, if you live in a big city, chances are that you interact with people from different backgrounds. And if you live in a small town city, right, that's a difficult thing to do. Most people are alike. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So this is my essay. Okay, I'm going to start with the introduction. Well, some people, again, I'm using the template, right? Well, some people might think that living in a small town offers more advantages. I believe that living in a big city offers more opportunities and better access to education, financial. All right, so those are my reasons, okay? So right from the get-go, the introduction, it's already making my choice clear. That's the thing, okay? First, so that's my first body paragraph. So my introduction is very small here, okay? First, bigger cities offer more educational opportunities than small towns. So that reason is very clear, right? There is no doubt about what I'm trying to say here, the message that I'm trying to get through, okay? So you get more educational opportunities. Now, how? I'm going to explain how here with example. For example, a city like New York City has some of the best schools and universities in the world, such as Columbia University, NYU, and the New School. Okay, so I'm giving concrete examples there. I'm mentioning even 3 things that are real, right? Everybody knows that Columbia, NYU, and the New School, they are located in New York, okay? So that's the thing. So you have 3 big names in that big city. Now, in fact is a keyword of addition. It is not uncommon to see young adults leaving their hometown to attend these universities, which is an important indicator to understand the sacrifices that people are willing to go through just to achieve their educational goals. So these people from different areas, they are willing to give up their life in their hometown in order to move to New York to study. So that's a big thing, right? So if they do that, it's because it is important for them to study at these universities, right? So that's the thing. By living in a big city, a person has access to the best education. I'm using dashes here to explain a little bit of what I mean with the best education, right? The highest ranked schools and universities. And their knowledge of the city will surely give them an advantage over other students who have just arrived and are just beginning to find their way. So if you live in a big city, you kind of avoid the hassle to having to move to a big city because you already live in a big city. And if you want to go to any of these universities, then you already have an advantage because you know your way around the city. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. I think it's pretty clear, right? Okay, so that was the first argument, the first reason, the first paragraph. Very neat, no big words, but the example is concrete and my message gets through, so that's good. So it's a very good paragraph. Number 2, second, bigger cities are home to the biggest companies in the world, which offer the best positions and salaries. So here I'm definitely talking about money, right? So the biggest cities offer these better positions and better salaries. Most international companies establish their headquarters in big cities because that allows them to get resources more easily. For instance, again, I'm giving an example here. Companies like Amazon and Microsoft have headquarters in Seattle, while other companies like Apple and Google have headquarters very close to San Francisco. Therefore, so I'm giving examples, right? So these big companies, big names, usually are very well close to a city, to a big city. Therefore, if a person is trying to get a job at a big company, such as a sales manager, programmer, any job type of high paying job, and get access to salaries of over $120,000 a year, so that $120,000 is kind of the benchmark. If you make over 120 a year, then you can say that you make a lot of money, right? If a person wants to do this, they will need to move to a big city to get a job at one of these big companies. So if you want to get that type of salary, it is necessary for you to move, okay? On the other hand, salaries in small towns tend to be lower and the positions less prestigious. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I added here on the other hand, right? Because that's what I'm showing, the disadvantages also of living in a small town. So this paragraph right here, paragraph number 2, also is very clear. I'm talking about money. I'm talking to have access or get access to jobs, to high-paying jobs. Okay. Now, paragraph number 3, third, cities offer more comfort and entertainment options, which leads to the higher standard of living experienced by its residents. So if you live in a city, that's very clear. If you live in a city, you have more comfort, you have more entertainment options, and the result is that you get a better standard of living. For instance, now I should have used a different keyword for example, because I already used for instance, but that's not too much of a problem, okay? Big cities host the most famous museums, concert halls, clubs, etc. So that's what I'm talking about, entertainment options, right? You have more access to these things. At the same time, big cities offer public goods and of better quality as well, such as better public transportation. There are no subways in a small town, better police force, and a faster internet access. So I'm arguing a lot of things which actually might not be true, right? It might not be true. I mean, actually a small town might be safer, but I'm just trying to sell an idea, okay? I'm not trying to lie, but I'm trying to manipulate this argument in order to support my choice, okay? On the other hand, now I'm adding on the other hand to show the disadvantages of living in a small town. Several small towns are located in rural areas and even have problems meeting their energy demand. Okay, I don't know how true that is, but some of them actually, if you live very far away from the city, you might not even have electricity. There are some huts, cabins in there that have electricity way down in the country, okay? Now, some of the roads in small towns are not pavimented, and services such as internet and satellite are slower, okay? Usually that's the case, right? For example, when you have antennas, right, like 5G or 6G, whatever new internet is coming up, they usually start with the cities, right, in order to satisfy the demand of the city. So if you live in a small town, your internet usually is going to be slower than in a big city like New York or Los Angeles, for example. Overall, a small town usually does not offer the same standard of living as the city does. So it's very clear what I'm trying to say here. My example is concrete. I've also mentioned the disadvantages of the other option. So this essay also is way more than enough to get the maximum score. Okay, so those are the 2 examples we've gone over. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over the tips and tricks, which is one of the most important parts of the whole lesson. Okay, perfect. So now let's go to the tips and tricks. Tip number 1, pay close attention to the rubrics, okay? It's important for you to know how they're gonna grade you, okay? So you have to know how they're gonna give you the score, right? So these are the rubrics. So here we have what's necessary for us to get a 5, okay? That's the maximum score. The score goes from 0 to 5. And what do we need to get a 5? Actually, it says, an essay at this level largely accomplishes all of the following. First, it effectively addresses the topic and task. So basically, you need to answer the question they're asking you. Okay, so you need to understand the question they're asking. because a lot of people sometimes they read the question too fast and they end up talking about a different thing. Okay, totally out of scope, and that's fatal. That's bad. They're never gonna give you a good score if you do that. Okay, it doesn't matter how well you write. It doesn't matter how well you write. If you just miss the point, then you're out. Then number 2, it is well organized and well developed, using clearly appropriate explanations, exemplifications, and or details. So this is what I've been talking about in the whole lesson. Maybe the most important component would be the reasons and examples you provide to exemplify those reasons. Okay, the examples are everything. The examples are very important for you to get a good score. Those examples need to be concrete. Let me show you what a concrete example looks like. Okay, so here we have it, right? Let's say I'm talking about driving a vehicle to work versus walking to work, okay? And then say my first example will be, for example, when I drive a vehicle, it is less healthy. That's not an example. I'm just repeating the reason. You see, a lot of people do this. That's not an example. I'm not showing anything different. A proper example would be something like this. For example, when walking to work, a person could burn up to 500 calories, which is about 20% of their daily value. On the other hand, when driving to work, they will spend the whole day sitting and not moving their bodies. In this way, they will not lose any weight and their cardiovascular system will not be stimulated. So that's an example. An example is something that shows the reader your idea, something that puts the concept, puts that image on their minds. You're painting a picture on their minds to let them know what you're talking about. That example needs to do that. It cannot be ambiguous, it cannot be abstract, it needs to be concrete. Now going back to the rubrics, we have that number 3 is displays unity, progression, and coherence, okay? In order to do that, you need to have transitions. In order to have transitions, you need to have a good template, okay? We already showed you the template. So, this template contains tons and tons of transition words for you to follow. So just follow the template. But what are transition words? Let me explain this here. So for example, you have keywords here like first, second, third. Those are enumerators for your paragraphs. And then you also have keywords of contrast, which are very important for you to use in case you are kind of changing positions, right? Or showing something negative. And these are very important in order to give to make the essay more dynamic. Then you also have keywords of resolution, like therefore, thus, right? Whenever you want to give a summary, a conclusion of a paragraph, then you add these keywords. And then you have keywords of example. There are several of them. I would recommend that you change them up, right? For example, as an illustration, actually, for instance, etc., as you show in the essays that I did for the live exercises. Number 4, displays consistent facility in the use of language, demonstrating blah, blah, blah. So that's grammar. Basically, that's just grammar. Okay, number 4 is just grammar, so that grammatically your essay is readable, that it's easy to understand and is clear. So that brings us to tip number 2. Employ good grammatical rules. Okay, grammar. So, okay, grammar has several aspects, but the most important aspects are these ones. You should be able to employ connectors. Here, for example, the proposal is flawed because it is not considering the consequences. Customers might choose never to read. So you should give 4 examples. So those are transition words. We already went over them. You have to employ them, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. Okay, so the use of connectors is very important. Parallel structures. The proposal is flawed because it is not considering the legislation and going against it. Not going, right? Because you have to use a verb, because here you want to make goes parallel to is not. Okay, so that's very important to have parallel structures. Passive voice. Stay away from the passive voice. Most people who are not really advanced with English, they don't know how to employ it. So just stay away from it. Okay. If you say the proposal is likely that is accepted by the city manager, that's poorly written. It's actually not well written. You're better off just going with the active voice. The city manager will likely accept the proposal. Okay, something way more concise, and also it has better structure. Prepositional phrases. The proposal of banning activity that is performed in the plaza in the following year is not convincing, so you would rather just say the proposal to ban instead of banning. Okay, of banning of plus ing sounds bad. There are some idioms that require of plus ing, but most of them not. So just stay with infinitives most of the time. Another big part of this is the use of tenses and pronouns. Okay, as I mentioned before, if you're studying for the TOEFL, you should know that by the time you take the exam, if you want to get a good score, let's say over 95, right, on the TOEFL, then your pronouns and your tenses should be totally okay. You should have no problems at all, okay? So, for example, here we have a problem with pronouns, right? A person cannot lose weight if using a car. That's wrong because that's missing a clause, right? So you want to say a person cannot lose weight if they use a car. Now, a lot of people ask me, right, why you use they instead of he or she? Because the person is a singular. In this case, you're allowed to use a they. You can use it. That's not a problem because it's an indefinite person, right? But you need to use a pronoun in that case, okay? Or a subject. So that's a good use of a pronoun. Now, just to show you something about tenses, a person that doesn't use a car lost more weight. That's just wrong because the tenses just don't make sense on that one. You're trying to give this to give the hypothetical idea. So if someone hadn't driven a car, that's a past perfect, they would have lost more weight. That's a conditional perfect, right? So those tenses are important for you to express hypothetical ideas. And most examples should be hypothetical, okay? Because those examples are not something that you're making up, right? Those examples are something that would happen in a given situation. So if you don't know how to express these ideas, these hypothetical ideas by using tenses, then you should wait before you take the TOEFL, okay? You need to have those right first. So that was tip number 2, grammar. Be really careful with your grammar. And now tip number 3, the word count, the word limit. We've mentioned that we want to have around 400 words for the overall essay at the end, okay? And a lot of people find that this word count is very difficult to reach. They have trouble writing so many words, okay? And this is because they're making 2 main mistakes, or that is preventing them from reaching or from writing a good amount of words in 30 minutes. Because believe me, if you know how to writing 400 words in 30 minutes is easy. I mean, it's not too much, okay? But if you are not reaching that goal, then it means that you're making most likely any of these 2 mistakes, or maybe both of them. The first mistake is due to the example. The examples you need to write for each body paragraph, okay? These people are not setting the examples correctly, and that's why they have very few words, okay? Because remember what I told you before. The example is what takes the most of each body paragraph. It takes the most space. Okay, so basically, let me show you here what I'm talking about. So let's check this out. We saw this before, right? So the first person is basically not giving a real example, and that's why they have so little words. They have very few words, okay? Which basically they're not exemplifying anything. Now, just check the second paragraph. If you give a real example that exemplifies something, immediately you're going to need to write more words. Because if you want to exemplify something, you need to be more concrete, you need to give more detail, you see? And you're going to write more. So the people who are not reaching the goals most of the time have very little examples that don't exemplify anything. And those are very poor examples. So if you focus on giving more detail, on being more concrete in your examples, you're going to have more words to write. That's the first thing you have to look for. And mistake number 2 is that they don't really have the right techniques to write a consistent paragraph. So right now I'm going to teach you my special technique that I teach to all of my students in order to have a really nice and hefty paragraph. Okay, this is very important. So these techniques will allow you immediately to write more words and for your essay to look much better. Here I'm going to show you how I write my paragraphs from scratch. So let's say I'm writing the first body paragraph, right? Healthier. That was my first choice, right? For walking versus driving. So I said first, walking is healthy. For example, a person who walks can burn calories. Therefore, walking will help them be leaner, okay? That's kind of what I had in my outline. Okay, that's basically the same thing. I'm not developing anything. So I start with that. But I have my keywords in there. First, for example, therefore, you see? I'm respecting. Of course, this is too short to be a paragraph. The paragraph needs to be longer. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to do this. So what did I do? This is the beauty of the comma, ing, and comma which. Okay, that's what you need to use because with a comma ing you can exemplify how you perform a certain action, and with the comma which you can exemplify on a noun, you can expand on a noun, you can describe a noun. So those are very powerful tools that you need to use in order to describe things. So going back to this example, for example, a person who walks can burn calories, making them lose tons of weight. So I'm giving kind of a consequence with this. Therefore, walking will help them be leaner, which in turn will contribute to their well-being. So I'm giving a consequence, a benefit, okay? So those are very important. Now it looks more like a paragraph, but still it's too short, okay? So what do I do to add more to this paragraph? Let's go here. What did I do? I started adding adjectives and adverbs, just more words, more adjectives and more adverbs. So I added, it's a very healthy activity. Instead of saying walking is very healthy, like before, I said it is a very healthy activity. I'm adding more things, right? More words. A person who walks a lot, right, can burn many calories. So that's what I'm writing, just adjectives, basically. Making them lose tons of stubborn and undesirable weight. You see? Definitely much overall physical and psychological well-being. So I'm adding a lot of things. Now this starts to look like a paragraph. Well, let's say that's still too short. If it's too short, I want to add more things. So what can I do to add more things here? I add a whole new example, okay? Because so far, I hadn't really added anything concrete. Because so far, I don't really have an example. I mean, my example is very ambiguous, very abstract. A person can lose weight. Okay, but now let me give an example. Let me give a real case to show how a person can lose weight. So here, as an illustration, I live 15 blocks away from my place of work, which would require me to walk 1 mile every day. By walking to work and back home, I'll be burning over 500 calories every day without even having to go to the gym at night. Then I have a good paragraph. I have a good, hefty paragraph just by giving more detail, more insight into my example. You see? So that's how you achieve things. So we've gone over several techniques. First of all, comma which, comma ing, to exemplify, to give consequences, to give descriptions. Then to add adjectives and adverbs. And then at the end, to give one more example to start kind of making your example more concrete. And then that's it, because if you write 3 paragraphs like this, then you're going to reach 400 words very easily. You're all set. You don't need anything else. And then tip number 4, I've had a really good day today, so I'm going to give you more tips, okay? The time limit. Time limit. Basically, a lot of people, they complain that they take a lot of time thinking about the examples and thinking about the reasons they're going to give. For example, when they ask me, do you want to drive to work or you want to walk to work? I easily answer, walking to work because it is healthier, it is cheaper, etc., right? How can I come up with these very quick answers? Because I have my universal reasons. That's how I call them, okay? We've developed some universal reasons that if you memorize them, these reasons are universal basically because they work for most answers. So just to give you a little insight on the universal reasons, these are the reasons, okay? You can say that something is cheaper, that something is healthier, that something is more available, that something is more accessible, or that something is more comfortable. Actually, in class, I'll give you way more reasons, okay? There are over 15 reasons, but if you want to know more about them, go to our video or our lesson for the speaking section, because we went over the universal reasons for the speaking section also, okay? So just employ the universal reasons. You don't need to get too creative. So if they ask you, do you prefer to watch movies home or go to the movie theater? You say, okay, movies home. Why? Because it is cheaper. It is more comfortable. Whatever you want to say, okay? So you don't have to think too much about those. You're not supposed to think too much about those reasons, okay? And that's how you're going to optimize your time. So my name is Rod. I'm with Liberty Test Prep, and we'll be seeing you in our following courses, because we're just like we did for the TOEFL. We're going to be putting out complete courses, free courses here on our channel for the IELTS and for the GMAT also very soon, okay, very soon. So just stay tuned for that one. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell, and also I want to hear from you, so leave us a comment, okay? See you until next time.